Good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. Thursday, June 15th, 2023. And I am calling this board meeting of the North Texas Mobility Corporation to order. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Looks like we have our counsel, Mr. Corpita, on the phone. Good morning, Mr. Corpita. How are you?
Good morning from San Antonio.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us remotely. The first item on the agenda is introductions, and it occurs to me that this might be Jane's first NTMC board meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
So would you introduce yourself to the group, please? And we are excited to have her here. She came from Denton County 2 months ago, right, to start the budget process. So you talk about diving in head first to the deep end. She is there, and we're glad to have her. So thanks for being here, Jane. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This agenda item provides opportunity for citizens to address the board of directors on any agenda item related or other matter related to NTMC. Each speaker is given a total of 3 minutes to address any item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, and similar demonstrations will not be permitted. Citizens that are not able to connect to the Zoom meeting must email his or her public comment to kmorris-perkins@dct.net no later than 12 noon on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, to ensure the comment will be distributed to board members prior to the meeting. Board of directors are not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the board of directors may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to NTMC officers for further study or action, briefly state existing NTMC policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. Do we have any public comments for the board today? Okay, thank you very much. So first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Consider approval of regular meeting minutes dated April 20th, 2023. Anyone has any questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll make a motion, accept a motion to accept.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, motion to accept by Board Member McGrath. Second by Board Member Ogden. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Second item is informational reports on monthly financial statements, fiscal year 2023, and comparison to prior years, also found in your packet. This item is for information only. Unless there's any comments or questions from the board, we can move on to the regular agenda. I'm seeing none. First item on the regular agenda is the presentation of the general manager's monthly report. Mr. Deshay.
Good morning, board members, colleagues. I'm going to cover 2 months today since we didn't have a board meeting in April. So I'm going to cover April and May. So we're going to have quite a bit of information. Most of it, I think you're going to like it. I think we're moving in the right direction. So I'm going to discuss the operational and maintenance activities, major developments. And we're going to discuss our key performance indicators, safety, on-time performance, ridership, and customer service and incidents. I'm really happy with our on-time performance. Just like I got a little bullet on this. We were trending in the mid-80s, 85.7 in April, made a nice jump in May at 87.2. And right now through week 2, we're at 89.8. So making some really good progress. So I challenged the team to hit 88% this month. We've already done that. So hopefully we'll be over 90% before the beginning of the school year. We did begin our summer process. Summer bid began on May 15th. Very seamless process. We also started our summer orientation schedules, commenced on June the 6th. No hiccups with that as well. We had safety meetings in April and May, covered ADA compliance, proper pre-tripping, defensive driving, how to drive in construction zones, defensive driving, and also new hire expectations. One of the twists we did in this meeting, we actually had our maintenance manager participated, HR manager participated in these meetings as well to kind of assist the safety manager. So to answer any questions the employees might have about those particular topics. Went over really well. We also had our first safety committee meeting on May 15th. The union members were present, as long as 3 representatives from the agency. Our next, from the management side, our next meeting will be on the 26th this month. And we're going to expand it to include a member from the maintenance team, and also a non-union operator is going to participate as well. Safety, in April, we had 0 reportable FTA reportable safety events. We did have 4 non-reportable safety events. In May, we had 1 reportable event, 2 non-reportable events. Pretty good performance overall. We also added a safety manager, safety coordinator, and operations manager were added to the team in May. So they've already started. And I'll give you a quick update. We've also added a road supervisors, just been added as well. 1 mechanic and 1 custodian has been added as well. And speaking of maintenance, so we're really focused right now, DDTC, our main facility, North facility, trying to get better organized, putting a more professional appearance to the organization. So we've really been working well with the DCTA team locally on projects to improve the performance, better organization. I'm pretty pleased with the progress we're having in that area. Here we're going to look at some of our key performance indicators for fixed route. Covers April and May specifically. I'm very happy with the passenger count. Actually, we think 34% increase in May, about 29% increase in passenger ridership in April. Overall, we've exceeded our ridership for the year compared to the last fiscal year already. So, and their progress continues. We're seeing a lot of success in that area. Of course, May 14th is when we started our summer schedule. So you can see the ridership after May 13th, the passengers per hour is a little bit lower, but that's to be expected during the summer. When we see our missed trips, delayed starts, no missed trips. So we're really good in that area. We did have some delayed starts. However, the first time point, our on-time performance is over 90%. So we're really coaching the operators to slow down a little bit, make sure they're hitting their time points correctly. And usually our first time point, we're anywhere between 92 and 94% hitting that first one on time. So very good numbers. And as you can see, our on-time performance at the very end, you can see it's starting to really climb. So again, this really good on fixed route as well as UNT. I think one of our weaknesses before was our fixed route on-time performance was a little lackluster. Now you can see that's really starting to surge as well. Then we're going to look at our KPIs for demand response. So,
Bert, can I ask you a question? What do you think is, what are the operators most responsive to that caused the decline in April?
we have to really give a lot of credit to our operations manager, Kelly Richardson. The strategy has been this. So we have Swiftly up. So Kelly has really instructed the dispatcher on duty to pay attention to the red, which is early departures in particular, and then coordinate communication with the road supervisors who are in turn communicating with the operators. So that's pretty seamless in the morning, especially we want to get up to a good start, establish it, through the rest of the day. Then the second part of it, we've used Swiftly as well to identify the time points where the variance is unusual, whether it's very early or very late. Same process we're getting with the road supervisors, our safety manager, they're going out there checking the time point, having dialogue with the operators as well. So we're just gradually getting better and better.
So the new technology telemetry is helping us improve on.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And usually I'm doing a summary every 2 weeks on the on-time performance. I'm sending that out to the local leadership team, asking for feedback, and we're communicating with the operators as well.
Great.
Now we're going to go to our demand response KPI. So you can see our passenger count in April. We actually were down about 10% year over year. However, in May, we were up 14%. So overall, we saw an increase in our passenger riders and our ridership year over year. Denton continues to lead the way, Louisville, Frisco, and then Highland Village. Then we can see our passenger per hour, slightly above the goal at 2.0, but very close. Then the next one, you can see our denied trips and trips not completed. Had a hiccup there in April, a little bit high. That's evened out in May, and I think it's really smoothed out. You'll see some really good numbers in June. On-time performance, we had the schedule change in May, saw a dip in the on-time performance. On the Louisville, we had two operators in particular who knew to that line were not performing well. So we've actually had somebody go out on the route with them, observation. So you can see it's starting to go back up, and we expect that number, all those routes to be over 90% in June.
Concern on that. I feel like every time I see this chart, Louisville is lower than everybody else. And then it goes up and we're all like, oh, okay, we fixed the problem. Then it happens again. But you can see that trend is definitely negative. It has its highs and lows.
Yes.
But I mean, I feel like it's been that way since I've been on the board. And at this point, I guess I'm losing confidence that we're actually fixing it.
Got to take that concern again. There are two operators in particular who consistently bid on that. If we don't get them up to performance, I mean, we're going to follow the disciplinary progress because it is covered in the operator rule book on observation of the schedule. We don't see anything on the route where they can't run it successfully because we do have other people on their route who are running it successfully. So it's just two operators in particular, and we're going to address those two operators if we can't get them to perform.
Two of how many operators?
Out of 12,
That are serving Louisville or serving everybody?
everybody. It just so happens the operators with the two lowest on-time performance happen to service Louisville. And one in particular, because his performance really impacts, because he's an AM operator. So if he's late and the person who's following him is going to end up being late too, because they're taking over.
And that's is the bidding process that they have seniority and they get to pick first and they pick Louisville?
Correct.
Okay. So when we get to the CBA discussions and the new contract that comes in March 31st, one of the things we pay close attention to is to ensure the disciplinary process, which is accountability on an ongoing basis, which is something that could be argued with the current CBA as well.
Yeah, even like loss of seniority or that privilege if you aren't performing. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't have a performing person. You know, we discipline until you have a change. And so in this case, I just haven't seen that.
Yeah. From the early ones, it just comes back. And the mechanisms in the CBA that allow that kind of determine the extent of the accountability that we have. So it's a conversation that I've already had with these two folks and with our.
Appreciate you letting me know your concern.
Yeah, and this board will be involved as we begin to outline, you know, what is the new CBA going to look like and all that stuff. We'll find ways to give visibility to that so you understand the type of agreement that we're going to get.
And by the way, I have to mention, we had two operators who actually had 100% on-time performance and demand response. So we know it can be done.
Yeah.
It's just this particular operator, you just need to address his performance. Okay. And here we have some other key performance indicators. I'm going to cover fleet status, our complaints, our accidents, and our roll call. So as you can see, our fleet status, obviously we don't have it run, we're not running as much service right now. So we're very positive right now having fleet vehicles available, both on fixed route and demand response. Our complaint level, as you can see, is dropped very low. I mean, we don't have a lot of complaints to begin with, but we were really trying to address every complaint we get. So we actually had 2 weeks in May where we didn't have any complaints. And in June, that trend is continuing. I think we've had 1 or 2 complaints in June so far, but we're really paying attention to conduct complaints, on-time performance complaints, anything that reflects the customer experience we're really trying to address.
How do they register their complaints? I mean, if somebody has a problem, how do they do that?
Well,
Just out of curiosity.
Well, we have a call center. They can register the complaint,
Okay,
and those go to GoGov. And so one of the things we've done differently, those come directly now. Instead of going through that second layer, they come in directly to the ops manager or myself.
Okay.
So we usually we'll know about it by the next day. Sometimes same day, depending on when the complaint comes in. And then on our roll calls as well. Pretty good performance. I think we have some room for growth in that area. In communicating with our operators about when they should call for a roll call for a bus replacement, making sure that the garage manager personnel are responsive as well. So I think it's some area that pretty good right now, but I think we want to be, I think we can exceed 7,000 miles for sure. Anybody have any questions on these slides? So let's look at our progress with our vacancies. So as you can see, we're planned for 95. We have 74 active personnel. 4 people are out right now. Says 17 open positions, but we've actually we have 1 operations supervisor that's been filled, 1 mechanic and the custodian position have been filled, and the operation manager position has been filled. So we're having a job fair. We're attending on the 22nd this month. We have 3 in July that were for operators. Obviously, that's the main one we have to do something. Fill those positions. We actually filled a position, 2 people, but we lost 5 people. So it's a problem of retention as well.
So how many mechanics are we seeking?
1 now, the other person starts on the 26th.
Okay. Got it.
So we were 2.
And the custodian job was.
Yeah, he'll start on the 26th as well. Okay. Any questions? And this just shows you the process our HR manager is following and trying to attract employees and fill those open positions. The slide here on with the part on the right here really shows you how many of the pre-screen. So she's making a lot of attempts. And we're doing really well getting interviews for the non-operator positions, but we just got to do a better job.
Well, I appreciate the views on this slide and the previous slide. It's a much easier look to be able to digest that.
So yeah, we'll sit down. Actually, we're having a meeting later on today. Maybe rethink our strategy, because the ultimate measure is it successful? So we know we need to fill those positions. It's going to play a major role that we fill those positions so we can have success in the fall and going forward.
On the 5 that left, were you able to find out why they left?
A couple of them for better opportunities, which they identified. 1 person, performance issue, attendance, and 1 person didn't really indicate why they left. But 1 person got their old job, basically said, hey, we'll offer you more money to come back. They did that. And this shows you our overtime analysis through May. As you can see, we've been trending double digits whenever we have full service. And that trend continued through April and May. We've had 2 pay periods since then, 3% and 5% overtime, both of those pay periods, including only 1.25% on the operator side. So we expect June, July, and August, those numbers to be. Last year was 4, 6, and 7. We definitely think we can do better than that. We're getting everything out. We're doing a lot better job of engaging the operators we do have. People are coming to work. So we're really trying to prepare ourselves for the fall and hopefully get some more people so we don't have that double-digit overtime going forward in fiscal year 24.
Bertrand, what tends to be the contributing factor of swings in the budget?
Well, during the full season, we just don't, when we're running full service, we just don't have enough unless everybody comes to work, our margin for error is very slim. Like this past fall, we only had one extra board operator. So basically, if more than one person calls off, you're gonna have to dip into either a road supervisor or one of your operations managers to run service, or people who want to work the overtime get the opportunity to do so. Right now, we don't have overtime because the way our service level is, and then our extra board, we have, I think, 8 people on the extra board, so we don't have a need to run overtime right now. But the key will be the fall.
One minor touch on this slide, could you change for the next time, you change the axis on the line graph to read full percentages like 30, 20, 10? Because when I first saw it, I said, oh, look, 0.3%, that's great. And then I saw the rest of the zeros at the bottom. So,
Will do.
thanks.
We'll address that.
Yeah, and there's a look that I want to get into with you all about the right mix of operators and service hours and how to target a certain number on our overtime. That'll determine how many we really need and all that sort of thing. Let's get through this budget cycle for the month of June and we'll start to keep that on.
Well, we're also working with our DCTA on the August bid and looking at some alternatives where we might have more hours on the route. So we will need less people up front. So we've been working with Troy on that. And actually we have a meeting today from 1 to 4, a follow-up meeting. So we're looking at some ways we can maybe cut the runs differently.
So even that, for people paying attention, the conversation that you just described is exactly the way that this is supposed to work. DCTA levels the service and then NTMC figures out how to deliver the service. That's a dynamic that we didn't have before you got here and you got here. So that what you just said was a very little thing, but it's a really big. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
And this shows you our complaints for April and May. So our goal is to be under 7.5 complaints per 100,000 riders. So you can see, April we were particularly strong, only 4.76. In May, a little bit higher, but we had fewer ridership as well at 7.3. And here we see a summary of the complaint types we had. That blue. So actually, the driver conduct should be the 7, and the 1 is the 88 trip plan. And again, on the driver conduct, we've met with all those operators. And basically, it's like, hey, look, we're trying to elevate our service delivery. These are the ways we can coach you if we can, because we've had follow-up for some of them, but we're not, to me, the conduct complaint should be 0. I mean, there's very few, I can't think of any scenario where it justifies having a conduct complaint. Even if you have a challenging customer, there's ways you can address it without them getting to the level where they have to call in a complaint or email a complaint. So pretty good now, but again, I think the June numbers will be even better. Going forward will be even better. Any questions? And incidents. So this is a relatively new category that we're looking at. And I think it's a very important category though, because to me, incidents really tells what's the quality of the service beyond just the core KPIs. What's the experience like for the customer? What's the experience like for the operator? So our safety manager's really been working with our operators to report anything that basically that can affect or impact the customer experience. So we're really trying to formalize the incidents to what our rider code of conduct says, so they can be very specific when they do have an issue. But this is what we're seeing right now. And relatively light, we had 9 reported incidents in April, 6 in May. Mostly onesies. We did have 3 for disorderly conduct. We did have 3 mechanical issues. So anytime an operator contacts dispatch and a road supervisor has to show up, they should fill out an incident report as well. And we had 0 damage contact, which means where there was a contact with another vehicle, but in going out there was no damage to either vehicle we do the report, and we move on. But the other incidents, public conflict, one passenger fall, an ADA issue, if a customer calls in even or has a question, we want them to note that, because again, it's something that we can address in our training, answer questions, because we want to get it to where super efficient, super friendly, zero complaints. I think that's something that really can help us create identity for the agency. Does anybody have any questions on this slide?
Alex, thank you for that.
You know, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I'm literally amazed at how few nasty things that are said or nasty things that happen. I'm very impressed with the fact that the people are being, for the most part, totally satisfied with what it is you all are trying to provide. And I just thank you for what it is you're doing, because it does look like things are under control. And I'm not saying they weren't before, I'm just saying now we have something that allows us to be able to figure that out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Again, the key thing is we're trying to create an identity.
Right.
To me, the best teams have an identity. This is what we do well. And there's no reason why we can't deliver great customer service.
I agree.
Oh, wrong way.
Yeah, right.
Well, this is always my favorite part. I love employee recognition. So we had operator spotlight for April and May. So for April, it's our new safety and training manager, Eric Hill Rivera. And he was already with the agency, so he was promoted to safety manager because of his continuous commitment to our core values: safety, accountability, excellence, integrity, and respect. And he's really gained the confidence of all our, even though he's a relatively young man, even our veteran operators have tremendous respect for him because of the way he communicates, his passion for the job and the agency. So he does a great job. He's our head of on the safety committee. He's on that meeting. He conducts our safety meetings, and everybody's really commended him for his professionalism. So in April, we're recognizing Mr. Eric Hill Rivera, doing a great job for us. And then in May, we're recognizing Mr. Jason Rosenfluh. He's one of our key mechanics. Been here for, I believe, 19 years. Well, no, it'll be 19 years next month, I believe. He's distinguished himself and his department with his commitment to safety, accountability, and excellence by helping keeping our fleet running and helping us achieve our fleet availability and on-time performance goals. So he's primarily an AM person. So when operators have questions about the bus, last minute fixes, he's the guy for the job typically. Whatever you ask him to do, he's always available. And again, our fleet availability right now, we're usually about 7 or 8 down right now. We were at 10 or 12. Hope to get better. We have about 3 buses waiting for repower. So I think by the beginning of the school year, hopefully we'll be under 5 for sure. But he's been a big part of that. So these 2 gentlemen, again, part of the team. We have several other individuals who are doing great jobs as well. And hopefully we'll be recognizing them as well in the future. So,
Well, our thanks, my thanks to Eric and Jason for their service. Seen both those men in action, and everything you said is absolutely right. Thank you.
thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I took note of that situation. You're going to be happy next month. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next item on the agenda is discuss the proposed fiscal year 2024 NTMC operating and capital budget. We have our CFO and finance chief for NTMC, Rella and Jones, with the presentation.
That corner, you might run to this route, or this one, trying to figure out which way it's to get the phone out. Good morning.
Sherelle Evans Jones, Chief Financial Officer, here to talk a little bit about our fiscal year 24 proposed budget for NTMC. I'll start this presentation, but this one will be kind of a tag team approach as myself and Mr. Paul Christina work through some of the key components of the NTMC proposed budget. So I think of this slide like as the Lion King slide. It illustrates the circle of life with respect to our budget cycle, where we are in a process of, preparation and review of our budget and have been since April or before, and will be as we continue to receive feedback from both this board and our DCTA board. We're in this process now with this NTMC board to do strategic planning. We will move forward with formal budget presentations in this setting and the DCTA setting. With a formal adoption of the budget, we say September, but it could be before, depending on whether or not all minds and hearts and comments are addressed and we feel mutually ready to proceed. So that could happen prior to September. And then it moves into watching and monitoring how things are performing according to expectations. And each governmental agency does submit information to the GFOA, Governmental Finance Officers Association, for awards, et cetera, and consideration there. So we would do that with respect to the overall DCTA operating and capital budget, that we would do that in December. I touch on this sometimes when we review financial statements and when I'm up and kind of talk with you about how the funds move in and out of from DCTA to NTMC. But this is just kind of a good depiction to help you to understand some key things that are happening on the DCTA side and where expenses and assets, et cetera, may be, and what key things are happening on the NTMC side. So when you think of what does it take to manage a bus operation, you have to kind of put both pieces together if you're looking to understand and analyze some of the business aspects. You have on the NTMC side primarily our bus operations expenses related to personnel. The largest line item of the NTMC budget relates to personnel costs. Obviously, there are other costs, outsourced services, et cetera, related to some of the recruitment activities to bring in the personnel and make sure that certain other kinds of training and other employee development costs are also considered. So we try to keep the cost of the personnel and the related costs to recruit, train, et cetera, kind of housed within the NTMC entity. However, on the DCTA side, that's where the operations expenses are related to managing and running the buses, where the fuel costs, the auto liability, et cetera, certain purchase transportation costs are maintained on the DCTA side. You frequently see a transfer from DCTA to NTMC to cover NTMC's cost in total. So this is just kind of a more detailed piece of information to help you to understand kind of where those costs lie. And if you were gonna step back and try to go, okay, what does it cost to run a bus operation? You might need to put pieces together from both of those organizations. So with that, I will invite Mr. Christina up, and I'm gonna not go all the way to the back because then I don't have to.
Before I jump up there, noticing the packet, there's some slides that were updated after this was printed. And so like, are we pulling the presentation from the late? Where are we pulling the presentation?
We look and it's the thing that's printed is not there.
Okay, so this
Yes.
is the most current.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And I think I know how that happened.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you. So because NTMC, the bulk of the NTMC budget is related to personnel costs, salary benefits, all that sort of thing. I thought it'd be prudent and responsible to give you all a view of the compensation and organization study that we completed at DCTA that informs not only this NTMC budget process, but also the DCTA budget process. One of the things that I've been focused on since being here at DCTA is helping our stakeholders understand and how to think about our agency. You know, we're a small agency from a ridership standpoint, especially coming out of the pandemic, even though we're on pace to potentially triple our ridership 2 years down the road. But we outpunch our weight class in a couple of different areas, like a university bus shuttle system that moves more than 1.5 million people a year. Only 30 other agencies in the country have a train like ours, and our demand response service is number 21 in the nation out of 280 some odd transit agencies. And so we're a small agency, but we don't have the pieces that we have are typical of larger agencies. And so the process that we went through was to identify what we call peer agencies across the country that we can use to benchmark against, not to say that everything that they do, we have to do, but again, it just helps us think about it. And so in April, I briefed this to the DCTA board of directors and said, based on APTA, American Public Transit Association data from the year 2022, and data that we got from APTA's compensation study that they did across the industry, here are the, 10 agencies that are most like DCTA. What you see is starting at the top, and this is going in ascending order of ridership. At the very top, Knoxville and Greensboro, those are bus operations that have a university in town, but they do bus and then demand response. And the columns out to the right-hand side show you what types of services they provide. Trinity Metro is next on the list. There are 2 agencies on here that operate a commuter train like ours. That's Trinity Metro and the Metropolitan Transit Authority in Nashville. So demand response, train, commuter rail is what you see at Trinity Metro. Interestingly, when you look at our ridership and Trinity Metro's ridership last year, we kind of offset one another in train ridership and demand response. They had more train ridership than we did. We had more demand response ridership than they did. That kind of evens out. Really, the main difference between us and Trinity Metro is they have a larger bus network. And that's something that we're focused on right now. And then you see their budget and employee count, and then all of our data is up here at the top. Going on down the list, the other things I'll point out, State College, Pennsylvania, there's a school there, Penn State, Ann Arbor, Michigan, there's another school there. Those are transit agencies that are serving large universities. I was on a call with UNT recently. They're thinking 50,000 students will be enrolled this year, and they're one of the largest universities in the country. And so that's part of the process that I want to get into next is how does UNT compare to others? Because we need to benchmark on what that is too. When it's in your backyard, you tend to not think about it a whole lot. But anyway, peer agencies, what are their budgets? What's their employee count? And then ultimately into the compensation study, we looked at a number of different things related to how they were compensated. That I'll get to in a second. Here is the current DCTA organizational structure. Yes, ma'am.
Your agencies. So Ann Arbor looks like they have a pretty similar budget to ours.
Mhm.
However, the ridership is almost double.
Yeah.
Is it? What do you think of?
So glad you asked. I've got a cheat sheet here that when you look at it, I think about multiples. When you look at our ridership, our budget, our number of employees, you're right. Ann Arbor, Michigan, they're at 1.9 our ridership, 1.1 our staff, 1.2 our budget. So they're doing something right there. But if you look at Indianapolis, let's say, they're at 2.8 our ridership, 3 times our staff, and 2.7 times our budget. Doesn't feel like a good ratio to say if you want to double ridership, you got to double staff and you got to double budget. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at those sort of multiples all up and down this list, trying to figure out who seems like they're doing well, who seems like they're doing not as well. And we want to, over the course of the next year, begin benchmarking on and learning more about these peer agencies. But that's exactly how we should be thinking about this list. You know, if you're running an efficient bus network, high volume, all that sort of stuff, it's very possible to have high ridership with small incremental costs. And so that's That's what we're about. And so that's the intermediate service planning process that we're going through can help us do that and understand how we can maximize ridership to the budget that we have.
Yeah, and I guess as a follow-up, I would just say I would be curious about Ann Arbor if they have what kind of partnership they have with their university, but do you think that that's probably key, especially for us increasing our ridership numbers?
Agree. That's great. Great observation. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. Okay. So here's the current DCTA organizational structure. DCTA prior to April had 40 positions authorized. Currently, we're at 36. In this year's budget process, what we've done up to this point is stabilized our upper level and mid-level leadership structure with all the recent hiring we've done. Folks like Jane who've come into the building in recent history, Sherelle, Maurice, and others. What we're focusing on this budget cycle of fiscal 24 is adding to the lower levels of the organization to begin to build some stability and eliminate risk in our overall administrative operation. But you see, here's our chief operating officer organization, our director of safety compliance who reports directly to me, CFO, a planning and development organization that DCTA has really just addressed with a couple of positions. We have one dedicated planner right now. We're looking to increase that with what's been approved. IT, engagement and administration, and then our board process support and reception, all that. Our contract services for NTMC, our contract services for GoZone, and our contract services for Rio Grande Pacific are here as well. On the NTMC side, this is the former NTMC organization chart. 105 positions plus 4 positions that were paid for under the HTG contract. And here's where we are today at NTMC, and we've confirmed with Maurice, Mark's current vacant position. So we're covered there. But what we did in the budget amendment that the board approved back in April was eliminated the HTG contract, which took out those 4 positions. We hired Mr. Deshay as a general manager, and then we removed these positions here that had been vacant at the time. And so the budget that we're talking about in this conversation is this org chart absent these positions. When you roll together the NTMC organization and the DCTA organization by a common salary band structure, which is something that we're accomplishing with this compensation analysis, this is what you see. At this level of the organization, technicians, attendants, and operators, our bus operators are in this salary band, analysts and coordinators, specialists, all the way up to our C-level employees, Maurice and Sherelle. The blue bar are DCTA employees. The orange bars are DCTA employees who were added, or positions that were added in the April budget amendment. And then the yellow positions are NTMC positions. We're not proposing any NTMC positions be added in this budget cycle. And so this is the staffing plan that we're walking into the 24 budget process. Okay. Can we, there's stuff on that slide that's not in. Can we pause? Okay. We're going to pause and get the second presentation up later. So just stand by. Okay. Yeah, we'll recess at 9:43 and be back online shortly. Okay, it is 9:45 and we're returned from our recess. Thank you. So this slide demonstrates what's happening with the salary bands that are being proposed between the common salary bands between DCTA and NTMC. This was the former salary band structure, salary levels 100 through 111. This was the salary band structure as of March of 2022, when the interim period started under my tenure. And then coming out of this to this is now what you see is 8 salary bands. That's the same as that chart that I just showed you. And there were assigned pay ranges over here that because you're going from 12 to 8, you have to do some interpolation to make a judgment call as to what those salary bands would have been under an 8-band structure. But so that's the way that laid out. And so through this process, what we did was we benchmarked off of reviewed salary and men's, mids, maxes on positions from all of those peer transit agencies, plus the city of Denton, the city of Louisville, the city of Highland Village, and Denton County. All total, it's about 2,100 job titles that we reviewed from all these places. We identified what are the job titles that are most likely to have a corollary inside the DCTA and NTMC organization. We averaged those up by the salary bands that we're proposing. And we end up here with a new salary band structure. The result of that new salary band structure is shown over here, where we compare the new salary band structure to the original DCTA midpoints that we came from. And then if you compare us to our transit peers, our member cities, Denton County, and then the average of member cities in Denton County, because we're trying to get ourselves positioned within the transit industry and then what's happening in the marketplace, because we're competing for talent here in Denton County and the Metroplex. When you just look at the original DCTA midpoints, what you see is 22% increase at the lowest level, 7% increase at the highest level. Some of the salary band midpoints stayed about the same. When you look at our transit peers, our proposed salary bands are higher, midpoints are higher than those transit peers, but a lot of those transit peers aren't happening in places that are growing as fast as North Texas. So that's why the member cities in Denton County is so important. By averaging, well, I'll go one by one. On the member city side, our midpoints are still below the member city midpoints. And there's good reasons for that in terms of complexity of the organization, all that sort of thing, overall budget, that sort of thing. Denton County, we're a little bit higher than their midpoints. And so when you average it all together, we're right about even. You see 0%, when you average Denton County and the member cities, 0% difference at this level, 4% different, 1% different, -3, -3, 2. We put ourselves right in the middle of those two. Does that make sense? Okay. Go ahead.
Based on the information that we saw earlier, though, the operator position was really the hardest time filling, correct?
Yes.
So based on that, because it's a hard to fill and hard to retain position, would you want to continue to be right in alignment, or would you want to be paying a little bit higher?
Great point. And I missed saying this at the outset. Operators are not included in this. This is only for the administrative staff. Because the operators are under a collective bargaining agreement, their compensation structure for this year is set. However, we are pulling a different set of data for operator pay across various parts of the region and nationally, and we've got some good data from APTA there as well. Same thing on the mechanics side to some extent, and you're seeing nationally the news about mechanics. So this is really focused on the administrative support staff inside of NTMC. Great point. Thank you. So what we're proposing in this pay structure is a 5% cost of living adjustment across the entire NTMC organization. When we do that, because we've shifted all the salary bands to the right, there are still some employees at NTMC who would be below the minimum of the salary band. And so we're proposing what we're calling a salary band compliance adjustment that adds about $38,000 to the overall budget that would move anybody who is below the min after the COLA to be at least at the min of this new salary band. One difference between NTMC and DCTA is that DCTA has a merit-based employee review process set on goals and objectives, as well as we're going to recommend a merit-based pool for adjustments on the DCTA side. If you recall, our general manager has now goals and objectives. We brought that standard from DCTA, and this is the first year that we're doing it this way at DCTA. We brought that standard over to the NTMC side through the goals and objectives set forth for our general manager. And so that I would expect next year that NTMC is eligible for the same sort of merit-based adjustment. But this year, in order to get everybody level set, it's the salary band compliance adjustment that is the addition to the COLA. And then we talk here about the collective bargaining process with the ATU in the spring is going to drive the operator pay adjustment, and it may also do something to this lowest salary band to be determined. When we take that salary band compliance adjustment and the 5% COLA under the NTMC organization, this chart shows you that those employees, 90% of the employees are going to be in the lower half of these bands, giving them plenty of room for us to be able to continue to adjust without every year having to adjust our salary bands. Plus, the ability to implement merit-based pay is going to help, and based on performance is going to help to move people across the salary bands. Now, every year, we're going to continue to review member city data, like the city of Denton just adjusted their pay scales right after I finished the analysis. But we're going to continue to monitor and make sure that we're level set and that we've got a good distribution across the entire organization. But for this year, this is a pretty good jump to get everybody level set to where they need to be moving forward. Does that make sense?
So in the budget, you'll have the 5% COLA, and then you also will have a merit increase yet to be determined.
No, we'll have the COLA for NTMC. We'll have the COLA plus the salary band compliance adjustment. And that's it. And then next year, one of the things that Mr. Deshay and Mr. Bell will be focused on is providing a goals and objectives mechanism through NTMC so that there can be a merit-based adjustment and a solid performance review process.
And it does include the mechanics or not? I wasn't clear.
So this does include the mechanics, but we have to, we're still going to set them aside to make sure that we're market competitive for the other things that might be happening in the mechanics space. So we have to look at the mechanics against what this does to see if any further adjustment is required. If it is required, we think that there's room inside the NTMC organization with a position that's currently vacant, that budget could be utilized to make those adjustments, a net zero impact to the NTMC budget. Any other questions?
Does this make sure that everyone has the livable wage for per hour?
We can take that.
We can take a look and make sure.
If he's looking at, the city of Louisville has, I think it's 18, maybe it's 18, I don't remember it, but we just went to that. So if you're looking at us and y'all have matches, at least on the city side, you would have, I guess, compared to that lower, but the transit agencies could have brought that down. So you may have some of that. We'll take that. You know,
Yeah,
have the stats and details.
If we're not there, we're very close. Thank you. Okay. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Cheryl.
Okay, with this view in terms of changing that position, or I like to think of it as the income statement. It's more straightforward to call it the income statement. In government, we like to call it the change in that position. As I talked about, the most significant expense is that salary, wages, and benefits. And so we wanted to take some time to explain how that number was calculated, how that number came together. Now, even with those additions that Paul just stepped you through in terms of what's being added to the budget, bear in mind that during that April revision, we removed a number of vacant positions that are included in the fiscal year 2023 line item. After the start of Mr. Maurice Bill, our COO, and Bertram Deshay, our general manager, they've done some good looking at what it takes to make the organization tick. And so from that perspective, it was prudent to remove any unused or unneeded positions that were taking up expense on the 2023 budget. So that's why you see, even though those additions happened, an overall net reduction in the amount. And I actually have a different slide that kind of compares and shows these numbers in particular, and I'll walk you through those in just a second. The balance of the expenditures, we'll walk through some of the key changes in the balance of the expenditures in just a moment. In terms of the personnel, the changes in personnel, then this kind of gets to that point in terms of an overall FY23, we had a total of 105 that were included and authorized within the budget. And so this speaks to that reduction in terms of the number of individuals, and makes room for us to be able to create additions and cost of living adjustments, et cetera, and still generate a net reduction on salary, wages, and benefits. Some of the changes you'll also see in terms of NTMC safety and administration. One of the key things there, and you kind of see the seven, is it 3, in terms of the way that the 2023 is categorized. I just want to remind the group here that in 2023, a good bit of the administration was being handled by an external company. So their administration costs do not factor into salary, wages, benefits, et cetera. They factor into, a purchase, a consulting, a separate line item. So it wouldn't be captured here, but we wanted to help you to understand kind of some of the changes and how that would factor in. One other thing that's key to note here is that we go through a methodology of calculating what is necessary from an FTE perspective based on an overall number of hours. Like we start with service hours for what we intend to, the service we intend to put on the road from a bus perspective. And then we use that as the guiding force to back into the total number of hours that we need. And so therefore a total number of FTEs, especially from the operations and mechanical, et cetera, support. Okay.
Do these numbers include your overtime?
Yes, overtime and an estimate for overtime is included in there. Okay, so some of the key things that are included in terms of the operations budget are salary, wages, benefits. We talked about that. What is included in key line items is what this is intended to kind of help you to understand. Advertising, as I talked about in one of the previous slides, certain administration costs for managing the payroll, pre-employment, et cetera, legal services is what will be included in outsourced services and charges. Insurance, since NTMC, since the assets, the buses, et cetera, are included on the DCTA side. One of the things that one might wonder is, well, what is that insurance? And, what are you insuring? That's primarily related to workers' compensation on the NTMC side. And then employee development includes things like travel, training, et cetera. So this is that comparison that I made mention of that we would get to, just to kind of help you to understand some of the key changes and key assumptions. We spent a good bit of time talking about the changes to salary, wages, and benefits. one of the things that we'll do is take as a follow-up note to just make sure that the net wages that we're talking about jive and gel with the total livable wages within our member cities. We anticipate new collective bargaining agreements that would happen during the spring, the end of March, that are going to impact operator salaries. And we anticipate coming back forward to this board and this body to discuss any changes that may need to be made to this budget with respect to what has been agreed to or negotiated with respect to that agreement.
So there's no estimate in there now. It's just carried over. What's current?
There is an estimate. That estimate, there is an estimate in there for an increase for operators. We will go through this agreement, this collective bargaining agreement, to determine if we need to make any tweaks to that amount. And it may result in some updates to this board to make changes to the budget. Does that make sense? Okay.
According to this. If I understand what's here, and this is not my background, it would appear, if you look at this, that the increase or decrease, it will show a decrease of $463,567. Is that what it's showing, or am I misidentifying what's happening?
Yeah, so are you referring to the net
Yeah.
decrease? Yes, so overall, the budget that we have for the budget that we're proposing for FY '24 for this next year is less by $463,000. And the key drivers of the reduction are the reduction in salary, wages, benefits, and the reduction in charges for outsourced services. I was spending a little bit of time walking through some of the components of that salary, wages, benefits. That's all.
And the outsourced services is one of the largest, and that's because we have more in-service people here. Is that what you
So
would say?
the change with the outsourced services, the main driver there, the reason the number went down is included. Let's not do, that's a crazy flag. Included here is the contract related to HTG, the firm that was kind of helping from a management perspective. So that's kind of what I was getting to, where certain administrative functions were being performed and they were hitting this line and not the salary, wages, et cetera. So you see a reduction with that as well. One thing that I wanted to point out is from an employee development perspective, I believe our management team is making an effort to increase that development cost in an effort to provide additional training and certifications for our staff and teams. So those are kind of the key movements. One went up, one went down. Net, you end up with a budget that is $464,000 less than the budget from the previous year. This is just a different view of the same information from the previous slide, providing it to you year by year. The same net reduction of 463,000. Now, in terms of next step, so we're feverishly preparing for the board meeting that we have with DCTA that happens next week. So we're finalizing packets, materials, information. The details for this budget, this NTMC budget, is included in those details. But just like we are having this conversation today, if there are changes or updates or things that you would like to see, this is an area where we can have further discussion. And so if we are good and clear and like what we have with respect to the proposed NTMC FY '24 budget, what we can do is kind of move forward. Those numbers are included in the DCTA package that we're working on. From there, it will go to that board for further discussion on DCTA overall, just to make sure that that board is comfortable with our overall financial direction that we are headed in for FY '24. I'm interested in how you want to proceed, what changes you are interested in seeing, what additional information that you need to make sure that we've done our homework, our due diligence on this FY '24 budget.
I don't have any other information. Welcome.
And I don't either. I'm assuming you communicate directly with the folks that we represent, so.
Absolutely.
That, you know, they're the ones that have the final say and so on. Unless you need help from us with regard to that.
Well, so by the bylaws, this board is to approve this budget to go to this. That is the primary reason that we will exist. We've listed it, it's a discussion item this month. So we can't take a vote to approve this month. But what we can do with no substantive feedback, we can communicate to the DCTA board in this next meeting that if the NTMC board asks a really good question about the living wage in Benton County, we'll have that addressed. We talk to DCTA next week. Then DCTA is not going to take any action. We'll come back to you all in July and then officially adopt, and then the DCTA board will adopt sometime after that, August or something.
And the reason I asked the question was based upon the discussion we had yesterday with our folks. I want to make sure that our city manager has all the information he needs so that he doesn't get caught off the march, I would say.
Right.
So if there's a way of you all and he getting together, do you think that would make sense or
Well,
not?
he's a non-voting, he's an alternate board member for the DCTA board, so he'll get the full briefing
Okay,
next week.
okay.
I have a couple of questions. Overtime. So because the overtime has been trending up, have you increased your estimates for overtime in the FY '24 budget? Or are you, since you're going to be looking at kind of the overtime, where the right number of hours for overtime is, have you kept it flat?
Overtime is included in the budget. In terms of the particulars and the rationale and the thought process on, you know, how we tweaked and changed that number, I'm going to defer to Mr. Bell to chime in if you have any thoughts or concepts.
Right now, we're taking a deep dive look into all the routes, as Mr. Deshay mentioned earlier, and evaluating the actual number of routes and of course, how we cut it up and staff it. In doing that, we're anticipating to see a reduction in the number of regular hours and potentially overtime hours, but right now it's in the early stages. And so I think next month we'll be able to come back to the board and share those details to how it's going to look going into next year.
And then we talked about a couple of meetings ago about incentives. I know that you're going to go through the collective bargaining agreement for the operators, but on the technician and kind of maintenance mechanic side, is there any thought into what kind of incentives could be included in the budget for meeting KPIs or assisting to meet KPIs or safety measures, knowing that that's an important focus?
I'll start and then, you know, this is like super friends approach, everybody, you know. So, like, when you put together these budgets, here's like, you know, confession, when you put together these budgets, you know, you have like 50 million spreadsheets running around in your mind in terms of where this thing is and where that thing is. I know that we have included funding in the budget for a tool allowance is one of those kind of new initiatives to try to help make sure that we are doing things to attract, retain, and kind of keep those members of our team wanting to be a part of NTMC and DCTA. So tool allowance is one of those. And you know that GIF where it's like Julia Roberts and the numbers are like floating around, that's me like right this moment. Anything else y'all want to chime in with in terms of thoughts around incentives?
The only additional one is for our facility crew as well as to take a look at, providing boots. Sometimes I think road supervisors in that situation. That's another benefit, factor, but of course, hiring bonuses, things of the features, improvement, taking a look at those. There's a couple of other programs that we're looking at right now too. But that requires again, a whole approach. We want to make sure it's done correctly. Mr. Christina brought over some examples from some of this time at the CEO conference. After the CEO conference, and so we're taking a look at how those can be implemented overall for both bus operations as well as facilities.
In terms of how it's gonna get funded, I agree with everything they've said. In terms of how it's gonna get funded, there's currently a vacant position inside the NTMC organization that by a first glance, high level look, any of those changes could be accommodated next year by removing that position from the org chart. And so we're working through those details, and I'm looking for Mr. Bell and Ms. Evans Jones to shake hands and say this works, and then I'll say, go do it. And
Okay, because I would like to see some incentives, especially given the hiring challenges and the retention challenges, really. I would like to see additional funding for incentives.
Maybe what we can do, since we're gonna get back together anyway to discuss the budget. Maybe what we do in our next month's presentation is we move from the phase where I know that there are incentives in the budget and specifically where they are, and we put them in a slide and show you what they are. Yeah, what's in the budget with respect
maybe
to.
we could also have a briefing item on what types of things exist in the marketplace on the operator side as well. So we can give you all a chance to see that.
Good.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, everybody? Don't do that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So challenging.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And before we move on to this item, I want to say a big thank you to Jane. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming in, and she's been awesome. I don't know if you can fully digest the fact that she just got here a couple of months ago and she is doing amazing work. I also want to say a thank you to our NTMC teams, our DCTA teams that help with being so responsive and so quick with information and so willing to, many of the folks on the finance team are new in terms of putting this together. And it's just been a wonderfully collaborative approach to make sure that we're receiving the information we need to be able to convey it to you.
And Cheryl's being modest, everyone. So this is the context of what DCTA is and NTMC are in right now. Cheryl started in December, Jane started in March, and there is nobody left in the building except for me to say, how did we do the budget last year? And that's a problem, you know, so we've had a lot, it's been a high degree of collaboration, a lot of teamwork, a lot of extra effort to get to this point. So we've got the right team in place inside the building at this table, at the DCTA board table, and I'm really excited about what's ahead of us.
So, having been here last year, this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. What you all are producing now is incredible. That's all, the only way I can represent it, because it is very easy. It's easy to understand or easier to understand. And you do a fantastic job of explaining what's going on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. That's the end of our regular agenda. The next item on the list is future agenda items and board member requests. I think we've got a few on the list. I'm talking about incentives for mechanics and operators, talking about overtime, ensuring Benton County minimum wage, any other things that want to be placed on the next agenda. Okay. Next regular board meeting date is July 20th. That's the Thursday prior to the DCTA board meeting in July. So this works out nicely. I mean, even the schedule that we have set up, that this board meets and then the DCTA board meets, is the right rhythm for us to be able to get the business done. Next item on the agenda is convening executive session. The board may convene the regular board meeting in a closed session for any of the following items. There's currently no executive session items on the agenda. So if there are any other discussions, comments, or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ogden, second by Vice Chair. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.